Hello, welcome to Spotlight, lighting the darkest of artistic corners.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
This evening, we catch up with local author Joanne Clague as her second book of historical fiction hits the shelves. Another poem from youth bard Eva Petrova. And the Service Players celebrate 80 years with a restaging of their first ever play. As always, do get in touch with any creative artistic endeavours you may be involved in, planning, hoping to create, or would really like to, yes, put in the spotlight. Poetic, visual, theatrical, musical, literary, mime, something we haven't even thought of yet in an artistic direction. Do get in contact, spotlight@manxradio.com, and we'll feature you here on the programme, on the radio, yes, the real radio, and on the podcast. Or email me direct if you're feeling modest, howardacane@manxradio.com. So, regular listeners, that's all of you, of course, will recall we had a chat with Joanne Clague a few months back, well known to many for her work here on the Isle of Man, local media, television, you name it, she was there. But she's now an author, and when we spoke to her last, was just about to publish her first book, The Ragged Valley, a gripping story set in 19th century Sheffield, with fictional characters against a backdrop of real events and places, Sheffield being her old hometown. Well, I'm happy to say the first book had rave reviews, being described as powerful, absorbing, a must-read for saga fans, and in what seems like the blinking of an eye, but is around 6 months in reality, I think. The second of the trilogy is out. The Girl at Change Alley tells the story of Louisa Lee, a former maid now trapped in prostitution, desperate to escape, but with no easy way out. I could tell you more, but instead, let's hear from Joanne herself. If you want the rest of the story, buy the book.
Canelo have contracted me to write 3. They're called the Sheffield Sagas. So book 1 came out in June, and book 2 has just come out, and then book 3 will be out next spring. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, actually.
So were they all in your mind when you're writing? Did you have each of the stories plotted out in advance, or did you sort of finish one and then have the outline of the next, or were they all actually mapped out from beginning to end?
Yeah, not really mapped out, but I knew while I was writing book 1 who I wanted the focus to be of book 2. So I'm finishing book 1 and thinking, yeah, this relatively minor character from book 1 is going to be the focus of book 2. So what's the story going to be? And I've just almost completed book 3, where I've taken characters from books 1 and 2. So of course, over that period of time, I've just grown to love them all so much. Actually, they're like real people to me now. And one thing I have found actually is that doing the research just threw up so many ideas. So that's helped in terms of plot to add to the characters' lives.
And is it a linear timeline throughout the 3 books?
It is, yeah, and that's happened actually almost by accident. So book 1 is set in 1864 and book 2 in 1867, and I've picked 1873, or is it 1872 for book 3, which actually feels a little bit random to me. But book 2 was the height of the Union outrages. So that's how I came up with the date for that. So I'm moving forward in time, which actually is lovely again, because the characters are growing up and growing older. So that's been really interesting, yeah, to bring them along almost in time.
So give us a little précis of this one then, without giving anything away clearly. Certainly reading about it, it seems like it's a little bit grittier, I don't know, a little bit harder hitting.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, these were gritty times, you know, and I'm writing from very much a sort of a working class perspective, so it's going to be gritty by its sort of very nature. But so the character I took from book 1, my central character, comes into contact with this period of time where there was a lot of union unrest, and gets involved in what was called at the time the outrages, where a particular union leader was doing things like he was having his henchmen shoot people, put gunpowder down their chimneys, all sorts of things were going on. And there was a commission of inquiry about this, and it actually led to the official recognition of unions. So it was the birthplace, Sheffield was, of trade unionism, which I know sounds actually quite dry, but it's, when you look into the history of it, it's so interesting. And again, I'm Sheffield born and bred. I didn't know anything about the flood that was the focus of book one, and I didn't know Sheffield was the birthplace of workers' rights.
I confess I didn't either, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I'm from Sheffield. You'd think I might know that sort of thing. So that's where the research just really comes into its own. I go, yeah, wow, what an amazing period of history. That's the plot around my characters' lives.
And how did you actually originally, because you say you're Sheffield born and bred, what was it sort of drew you to this period to start there? Because you could have, in theory, have started anywhere, I suppose.
I could have done, actually. And again, almost by chance, I was writing about I wanted to write about my grandparents' lives, and that would take us through the 20th century from about, my grandfather was born in 1919. And actually looking back now, I can see that was probably a bit too ambitious. But while I was researching their lives, I came across an account of the Great Flood of 1864, and I just knew that was it. That actually was my starting point.
So, if it is a linear timeline, that suggests that if you've got one more book, which you said you're working on now, is the aim for it to carry on beyond there?
I really want to. Yes, I really do. I mean, I think I'm going to have a little rest after book 3. It's been quite a crazy time. But yeah, I'm so invested now in the characters, and they do return. I've actually had people ask me about the main characters in book 1, what happens to them. So actually, I'm quite relieved that they're in book 2. Yeah, so and I've got ideas for books 4 and 5 featuring pretty much the same cast almost. I mean, I'm introducing new people as I go along. But yeah, actually at the moment what I'm thinking is I'd just like to carry on. Yeah. Whether the publisher thinks that, I don't know.
It is fiction, of course, but is it important for you in your writing style? Because it is, like you say, there is this gritty realism to it, and it's set against a background of real places and real events. I think, is that very important for you in your writing?
Yes, very important. I'm always aware, especially being from Sheffield, things like street names. I want to get them right, and even the incline of a road. So little details like that I think are important. I mean, especially for, if I've got a readership in Sheffield, they'll pick up on things like that, and it takes you out of the story, doesn't it? If there's a historical inaccuracy like that. But broader picture, the outrages and the Great Flood, yeah, there's a little bit of license that I've taken there, but I've tried to get all the basic facts correct. But I always say, to excuse myself, it's not a history textbook, don't take everything as gospel, but I try to be accurate where I can be, yeah.
Well, we were just chatting on the way up before we started this interview, and you were saying you've been doing an interview just the other day with BBC Radio Sheffield. Do you have a steer on your audience after, the book 1's well out now, book 2's coming out and hitting the shelves as we speak? Do you have much of a steer after the first book of your audience, whether you have got an audience actually around the Sheffield area, or is it more people well known on the Isle of Man, of course? Is it sort of, do you know where your audience lies? Is a real mix?
I think, yeah, you know what, it's hard to know, actually. I think there's a nice mix. I've had some feedback from people from Sheffield who said, oh, great, a book about Sheffield's history. And I've seen, little bits and pieces in reviews, which I have been reading, although I shouldn't really, but I do.
That's always dangerous, isn't it?
It is always dangerous. It is. But actually, it also gives you a handle on who's reading it. So, yeah, I actually think I've been lucky with my audiences, because I probably do have an audience in the Isle of Man, and I probably have an audience in Sheffield as well. So, yeah, and hopefully further afield.
And the writing process itself, we spoke about a little bit at the last time, and we were again chatting as we came up about you saying how you've become more engaged in the marketing side of things and all the sort of, I suppose, the aspects of being an author you don't think about, in that you can't just, there we are, I've written a good book, job boxed, finished. It's not as easy as that. Nothing ever is in life, is it? Has your writing process evolved, do you think? Or is it still very much the same, or do you think you have a very set, clear way of what works for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably a little bit more chaotic. I did think I might be one of those people who would sit down in the morning and write for 4 hours and produce 2,000 words a day and do my research in the evening and editing and so on. But actually, no, I do write early. I do get up early and write as much as I can before the day even really gets started. But then, yeah, I am chaotic, and so I can write, I could go home and write a couple of 100 words now and then do a bit of research, and then I'm about to hand book 3 in, so I need to kind of do a little bit on that. And what I have found as well is that I don't need complete silence, and I think that's from years of being in a newspaper newsroom.
Busy environment.
Yeah, so actually I do find I'm quite productive if I go to a cafe and sit and get my laptop out with all that noise going on around, and people watch a little bit because that's all part of it, isn't it? And then get some words down then.
Still an enjoyable process?
I love it. I really, really love it. I just feel really lucky, actually, to be able to do it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm enjoying every minute of it. Sometimes, like you say, the marketing and doing interviews, in interviews like this, it doesn't come naturally to me. Social media I've had to learn a lot more about. I actually credit my son in book 2 because he helped me with Instagram. So there's that side of it. Like you say, you think you're just going to sit down and write a book and that's your role. But actually, there's a lot more to it. Yeah. But I'm enjoying it.
So a short break after, book 3, as you say, going in shortly into the publisher, a bit of a short break then. And
Possibly.
Then do you have sort of... Again, not giving anything away, but do you have a formulation in your head of where you might go, all things being equal?
I've got some ideas again moving forward slightly in time. Although I am really invested in the period that I'm in, the mid to not late actually, just mid Victorian period. So yeah, I've got some ideas, and I think now actually I would struggle not to write all the time. I think I'd find it hard to stop doing it. So I say I'm going to take a break, but I probably won't.
Well, look, many congratulations. It looks fantastic again, doesn't it? You must be delighted with the actual production of the book. We've got one here from Canelo, as you say. Absolutely looks the business. Marvellous front and back cover. Some lovely praise for the Ragged Valley as well on the back, which is terrific. Available in all good bookshops, as they say.
Yes.
Any book signings?
Yes. If I could mention that I'm doing a book signing this Saturday at the Bridge in Ramsey, in Parliament Street in Ramsey, 11 o'clock on Saturday morning.
Get yourselves down there then. Bridge this Saturday. If you want to have a word with them, she'll be happy to sign up, have a little bit of a chat, without giving anything away, of course. And that time again, Bridge Bookshop, Ramsey. Yes,
it's at 11 o'clock. And can I just say that is one of the best things about this whole process is signing books and chatting to people. I love doing that. So yeah, if people can come along and say hello, that'd be great.
The Girl at Change Alley is published by Canelo and is available now.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
A bit of poetry. We heard from Manx bard Michael Manning the other week, so let's hear from the youth bard Eva Petrova today. Here she is to introduce the piece to you herself in her usual wonderfully polite manner. She puts me to shame.
Good evening. A slightly older poem, which, unlike my usual work, doesn't have a very large message behind it, other than maybe to say, don't lie. This poem focuses more on the structure of 13 stanzas of 4 lines each, both supposed to be unlucky numbers, and the rhyming pattern going A, B, C, B, D, E, F, E, etc. It's a twist of the truth and a twist of language. Enjoy. Deception. Spin me in your web of lies, a spider crawling under my skin. Words to you are an object, to be manipulated on a whim. Mirrors to innocently tilt the truth, a dodgy reflection behind the glass. Cowering under the sea's surface, a heaped up, lazy, tangled mass. Hold the decaying fruit of your soul, extracting the seeds, oozing juice, beating it to a pulp of what it was, young innocence bruised by abuse. Start with something small, a scrap piece of stolen food. Soon you're misusing ideas, lying when you feel in the mood. You'd be an expert storyteller. There'd be nobody better than you at twisting reality with fantasy and rotting the very core of what's true. Inventing the people I know of in places they've never been, taking inspiration from real situations, slotting yourself in gaps in between. It's become your true second nature, a pleasant way to fill your pastime, adding even more pieces to the puzzle when I uncover your pantomime. There's no need to hover in your own shadow. I see right through your act anyway. The clockworks are visible as they tick, thinking up a lie, brains sprinting away. Raise the protective shield of untruths you deny. Of course, you're always right. As if the truth leaves you vulnerable, trying to impress everyone at first sight. Slip chosen characters into your game, writing all the new rules as you play. Change the plot every time you lose, and there'll be nobody left for you to slay. A place as desolate for you as it is, no longer included, not to be trusted. I find I'm questioning everything you do. There's not a single rag left unadjusted. Whisper me lies to gain my secrets. Promise me a lock without the key. Hold the strings, to us the puppets, drag us all along on your mad spree. Even when rock bottom is above you, still you lie your way out to fall, until all the truth that remains? A needle in a haystack. Nothing at all.
Eva's got to have a great career in poetry ahead of her, hasn't she? A future Manx bard, surely, should she decide to stay on the island long term. Don't forget, by the way, the Celebrating Creativity Together initiative we featured the other week is still continuing. The booklet and video now available online. I'll put the details on the podcast page. Hard copies of the booklet will be available next week. There's also a post with social media video on the Isle of Man Government Facebook page. Check that out. And, of course, listen to the Spotlight special podcast featuring Jane Critchley and all the others talking about celebrating creativity together here on the island. Finally, but by no means least, the Service Players, well known for their fantastic stage adaptations in recent years of all sorts of television shows, Blackadder, Dad's Army, Vicar of Dibley, to say nothing of Dick Barton, Toad of Toad Hall, the list goes on. Something a bit more serious this time, and celebrating a special anniversary in 2022 with a very special production, as Secretary of the Society, Lisa Smith explains.
Everybody knows, don't know what to call him, but he's mighty like a rose, looking at his mommy with eyes so shiny blue, make you think that heaven.
This month, the Service Players is presenting Night Must Fall at the Gaiety, which is the first production that the Society ever did in 1942. So this year is the Society's 80th anniversary, and we thought it would be a wonderful way of acknowledging that milestone by presenting the first play that we ever did. Back then, John Pertwee, who was one of the founding members of the Society, he played the main role, Dan. And this year in our production we have the wonderful David Dawson playing that character. It's a real gem of a role, and I'm certain it was one of the reasons why the founding members decided to do this play. It was fairly new back then. I think it was written in 1935, and it looks at the character of Dan. It's very complicated and multifaceted, and it's unlike anything I think that had been done before. So I'm certain it was one of the reasons that they decided to do it. Yes, I've been absolutely overjoyed watching David tackle this character. It's been wonderful watching him in rehearsals. And the other two main characters are Mrs. Bramson, who is an old lady in a wheelchair who takes a liking to Dan and brings him into her life, and the life of her niece, Olivia, played by Rachel Jochen. The two actresses are absolutely fantastic, award-winning, as is David. And they are supported by some wonderful actors as well. Thomas Ian Dixon, who people will know from Shrek and Hunchback of Notre Dame. John Snelling, who people will know from, well, many things, but Spamalot. He played King Arthur in Spamalot. And Badger, he played Badger in The Wind in the Willows a couple of years ago as well. The whole cast is really stellar. We've got Kelly Firth, Claire Kayser, Helen McKenna, all playing some fantastic roles in this psychological thriller. Yes, it's going to be a real joy to watch. The atmosphere and the tension that builds up in this play is something to behold. I think it's going to be a really fantastic night of entertainment at the Gaiety Theatre. This is a bit of a departure for us because we are best known, I suppose, for farce and comedy. We do drama as well. We've done, over the past couple of decades, we've done Stoppard and Chekhov, Agatha Christie. But it is true to say that we do generally enjoy our comedies more. So The Night Must Fall, despite being the first play that the Society ever did, is something unlike the recent productions that we've put on. So it's a real pleasure to do something different. The next project for the Service Plays will be taking part in the One Act Festival, which next year will be a part of the Easter Festival at the Gaiety Theatre. So we're organising our entries into that at the moment. So if anyone's interested in acting, directing, working backstage, it's a fantastic opportunity to do so. And if you wanted to get in touch, then find us on Facebook and get in touch that way. We are always very welcoming of new members. It's a very friendly society with very little pressure on people. So it's a really nice way of getting into theatre if you want to do that.
Night Must Fall is on at the Gaiety Theatre between the 10th and 12th of November, so there's not much time to book those tickets, people. A great cast, a great play. It's bound to be popular. It is a tense, psychological thriller by Emlyn Williams, of course, as Lisa was mentioning, which has had 3 film adaptations to the best of my knowledge. And as the tagline says, it's frightening to think what a face can hide. That's about it for this week. Don't forget, if you want to hear anything again, go to manxradio.com, download the Spotlight podcast, listen where you want. Why not try it as a little bedtime listening with a mug of cocoa and perhaps a Farley's rusk for old time's sake. I'll be back next week when we'll be catching up with the Arts Council and hearing about Blue. Drop me a line with any artistic thoughts or ideas. Stay creative. I'll see you then. Cheerio.